daughters, sisters, and wives. He says they're gonna change our lives. Be women, be girls. They'll make a better world. Invest in her. Invest in her. Invest in her. And now here's your host, Catherine Gray.
Hello, I'm Catherine Gray, producer, author, and TEDx speaker, and of course, the host of Invest in Her, where every week we have on fascinating female founders and funders, and I'm so excited because today we have on someone who is both, which is my favorite category. Let's give a warm welcome to my guest, Susan Sly. Hi, Susan, how are you?
I'm great, Catherine, and thank you so much for having me. And I want to give a shout out to you and all your viewers and listeners just for everything you're doing in the world. I think that, as women, we need a champion, especially in the funding arena and the founding arena. And thank you for being one of those champions. I'm honored to be here.
Well, thank you. I was being sincere that I say my favorite category is someone who is a founder and a funder. And I say that because, I'm a big proponent of we need more female investors. And there are so many successful women out there who are in a position to get behind other women. And I love that you're doing that. So I want to talk about that. But first, I just want people to get to know you a little bit. You were originally born in Canada?
I am. I don't say A, though.
Well, I love Canada. One of our favorite places. My wife and I went to Banff just a couple years ago. What an extraordinary place. OMG. And Vancouver. What part are you from? Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Ontario, and I was actually raised by a single father and a very tough Chinese grandmother. And I grew up in our family restaurant. So, my days were spent getting up at 5 a.m, folding napkins, making egg rolls, rolling change back when that was a thing. And my grandmother would come along, Catherine, and if I hadn't done the napkins right, she'd pull them out and she'd be like, start over again. And but it was an amazing upbringing. I grew up on the St. Lawrence River, so I could literally look out the back of our restaurant and see the United States on the other side. And so, yeah, that's where I grew up.
That's a very cool story. I mean, you can already see how your upbringing impacted you being such a successful entrepreneur. So you're lucky that you had that beginnings where you grew up in a family business, even if it was tough, right? But in the long run, it was a silver lining, it sounds like. So you're in Arizona now.
Yes, I live in Scottsdale. I had to fire winter, and shouts out to anyone who lives in winter, but I needed to go where boots were a fashion statement and not a necessity.
Here. That's why I'm in LA and spent time in Florida. I definitely love the sunny weather as well. We are a little spoiled, but not to say I didn't love living in New York City as well. So I want to understand, obviously your upbringing is what made you an entrepreneur, and you've had successful businesses. And right now, I know you have a super successful business that you are raising mega funding for. I'm so impressed, an AI company. And let's talk a little bit about that because, people tuning in want to know, how are you getting your funding and how did you get your idea off the ground and what gave you that idea? So let's look at all of that.
Absolutely. And I want to just share, I've been an entrepreneur since I was 11 years old. I started my first business. I wanted to buy Christmas gifts, and I went to my dad and I said, hey, can I have some allowance? And he said, why don't you start a business? So I didn't get the allowance, Catherine. I got a startup funding loan, and I'll just share the story because it's relevant to the question. And so he said, but I need you to do a business plan. So there I am, 11 years old. I'm writing out my business plan. I'm going, what's my area of genius? What is it I'm going to create? So I decided I was going to make these Christmas ornaments and I was going to resell them. And I had my margins. I did all of it. I go back to my dad, show him the presentation, which is on foolscap. Remember in school when we used to have to write on the line paper. And so he gives me $40. I go buy my materials, make all of these ornaments, and then I go selling them like door to door, face to face. I made $80, paid him back. And I said, okay, I could stop at the 40, or I could reinvest that back into the business. And that's what I did, and scaled my little mini business. I haven't changed my approach to fundraising. So our company Radius AI, currently our valuation is just kissing around 250 million. We're in the B2B space in retail and in healthcare. So our healthcare product is actually a COVID pre-screening product using computer vision and taking the burden off the frontline workers. So instead of nurses, God bless them, standing there pointing the fever gun at someone's head, filling out the iPad, our computer vision does that, and then they can go and do what they need to, which is save lives. So our clients, we're currently doing an installation at the VA hospitals in Northern California. We've worked with the Mayo Clinic. And then our retail product, we do advanced business intelligence integrating into existing security cameras. So when I came into that company, I was in the process of doing the architecture to start my own tech company. And I wanted to do it in the biometric space. So if someone has an Apple Watch, or I have a Garmin one, a smartwatch, I wanted to use biometrics to actually nudge people, especially in sales professions, to do better. So if their heart rate started racing in the conversation, it would actually nudge them what to say, what to do, connect to the APIs in their social media. So I'm in the process of this. I named it everything, and I ended up meeting serendipitously the team who was starting the AI company. And they said, would you come help us raise money? And I said, you and I were talking, I just did Glenn and Mindy Stern show. I said, I have one area of genius, it's raising money. Everything else I'm rubbish at, but I'm really good at this. So they said, what do you want for it? And I said, don't give me anything until I do it.
Wow.
And I want to,
that's really believing in yourself.
yeah, I want to pause there, because so many people, they would love to VC, they would love to start a company. Are you willing to grit it out and prove yourself? And I'm turning 50 next year. And to me, there's no, oh, Susan's made, become successful. I never think that. That's not in my wheelhouse. So I go and I come in and we start raising money. We raised $7.1 million, all friends and family. No big VCs, no institutional investors. And so I became a co-founder of the company. Initially, I was a vice president of marketing. Then they said, do you want to be the president? I said, well, okay, I'll be the president. Then do you want to be the CEO? And I'm quite fond of someone else on the team and who's very experienced in the startup world. I said, let's be co-CEOs. And so my co-CEO is an incredible human, and he and I work so well together, and that's how that all started.
Now, I want people to realize that you didn't go from making Christmas ornaments to a $1 billion, multi-million-dollar company. There was a little in between.
Yeah.
So, but over the years, you developed, obviously, this ability that was a God-given gift, obviously, to raise money, because raising money, it is a gift. And it's something that every company needs, but is one of the hardest thing, I think, especially for women to do, because women tend to be afraid to ask, and you have to ask in order to get. And even they have a hard time receiving. It's just brought up in the DNA of our culture. We're givers, and it's hard to break that pattern. But I'm glad there's women like you that are an example of this. And I'd love for you to give advice to people that I know that are astounded by your story you're just telling about raising $7 million from family and friends. And they might say, well, my family doesn't have that. But these aren't like just friends. These are people that you've cultivated over the years, right? Through business, through networking. So in other words, don't you think anybody could cultivate that if they give it 100% of their focus? I know that you've mentioned this. You and I have been on the Clubhouse together. You have this great group called Femboss Squad that we're doing every Sunday in Clubhouse. And I just love it because it's great energy, women who want to give back and pay it forward and are sharing information to entrepreneurs. So if people are in Clubhouse, they can check that out on Sundays at 4, which is Pacific time. And it's just a wealth of information. And I love being a part of that. So if somebody really needs to raise this kind of money, what are some tips you can give them? I've heard you and Lori that you invested in mention about, calling on 10 or 20 people a day until you get to that one that is what we call your people. And what that means is they get your idea, they believe in you, they want to get behind it. And I follow this thought leader, Andrea Quinn, who says women spend so much time trying to make not their people, meaning someone that doesn't get their product. You spend all this time and energy trying to convince them when it's really a waste of energy. Just go find the person that says, wow, this is amazing. I want to get behind it. Am I right?
Absolutely. We're not selling a piece of technology or a product. We're selling a story. And a little bit you asked, how do you go from Christmas ornaments to this? And over the course of my career, I've built 3 award-winning sales teams totaling over 1.7 billion in sales in 3 separate verticals. But I'll just tell a quick story. So one night I was in LA, actually, at a hotel, and I was speaking the next day with doing an event with John Assaraf from The Secret. And
I love The Secret, by the
yeah,
way.
yeah, I know
Fan of that.
a lot of those guys who are in it. And I'm watching A&E biography. It's one of those nights I'm having a hard time sleeping. And Natalie Cole's biography was on Catherine. And she said something that was so profound. You only see the glory, you don't know the story. So people can look and say, oh, Susan's co-founding this and she's investing in women-led ventures. But what they don't know is 21 years ago in 2000, I was diagnosed with progressive MS. My marriage fell apart. I lost my business. I ended up homeless as a single mom. And what I wrote about in one of my books was about Hester Prynne, the Scarlet Letter. And this is the first piece of advice I have for women. In Nathaniel Hawthorne's book, The Scarlet Letter, Hester Prynne has to wear the A for adulterer. And so many of us as women have all these scarlet letters. We're D for divorced, we're S for we have some kind of sickness, or we're, all these multitude of sins that we've ever had. And we wear these chains around our necks. And I made the decision in the summer of 2000 that I was just going to cut off all the scarlet letters, because I looked at losing everything as an opportunity to gain everything, to lose everything that I wasn't, to become everything that I was meant to be. And so 3 years after that, I started a business that, would go on and, be a multi-million dollar business. But the reason I start with that story is when we're going out to fundraise, we have to cut off our scarlet letters. That's the first thing. It doesn't matter to me. You're either a good person or you're an idiot. You either do good in the world or you suck the energy out of people, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is your network. So you mentioned, Catherine, about finding your people. So one of my mentors is Harvey McKay. He wrote Swim with the Sharks or Get Eaten Alive. He's almost 90. He's a great mentor to me. He's like a second father. And Harvey says that our network is our net worth. So one of the things I do every single day is I randomly message people just to say, I'm thinking of you, or I was praying for you this morning, or whatever the case is, for no agenda whatsoever. And thinking about, I was homeless 21 years ago to the point that I can raise money is because over the year, no matter what I was going through, if I was having a wall kicking moment, I would always, every single day, reach out to 3 people. I'm thinking of you, or I was thinking about the time when, or I'm so grateful to get to know you. So guess what begins to happen when you are a good person without an agenda? It comes to step 3, when you're ready to ask. So I'm assisting a company. It's actually founded by my goddaughter, Chelsea, in their fundraise. And so we're raising 1.5 million Canadian, actually, at a 20% discount rate with a $10 million valuation. So I reached out to one of my girlfriends and I said, listen, this is what I'm doing. She said, Susan, I don't even need to see a pitch deck. If you're involved, I know it's going to be successful. I'm going to bring a bunch of my friends to your pitch. And so the fourth piece of advice is we do a one-to-many pitch. So as opposed to, let's go meet for coffee, let's have dinner, it's COVID, we're not doing any of that. What we do is we do it on a webinar, on a Zoom. We'll do 20 minutes of pitching, open Q&A, invite your friends. We make it fun. We make it energizing. We ask for the commitment. People message us, and that's how we do it. It's a different way to pitch.
Yeah, I love that approach. And, people might say, well, I don't have that circle of people that have the money to invest in my company. How do they get past that barrier? Is that reaching out to people they don't know to connect and eventually build? It sounds like that's how you eventually built your circle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's what I would say. If someone can see me, cut the L off. The L stands for lack. You actually don't know how much money your friends have, and you don't know who they know.
Right.
So this is going to sound abrupt, but this is kind of the person I am. I don't have time for nonsense. If you're saying, well, I don't know people, you're not going to be successful in your business, because if you don't know people to invest, how are you going to find customers? So you have to shift that mindset to, and in my past life, I was actually a business coach. I'm certified in NLP. So one of the things I would say is shift that mindset to, I'm in the process of expanding my network, and you can use it to shift your neurology. I'm in the process of expanding my network. I'm in the process, right? And so then getting granular, what is it you're looking for? So there are different opportunities for fundraising. We can do crowdfunding, which suddenly takes away investor qualifications where someone might not be able to invest. They don't meet all of the requirements in the United States. They don't make over 250,000 or have $1 million in assets other than their home. But with crowdfunding, the limits have been raised. So you can raise millions of dollars in your crowdfund, and people can invest 25, 50, or whatever the case is. There's always a way. If you want, one of the reasons startups fail is not because the person didn't have a good idea. It wasn't because their technology wasn't amazing. It was because this stuff between the ears was broken.
Right, held them back. And when you say crowdfunding, I just want to make a point that, like you're saying, that there's crowdfunding where they don't get any equity, but the new crowdfunding is that there's equity crowdfunding, since Obama passed a law that allowed people, like you're saying, that don't have a lot of assets, like you have to have with the SEC for a regular startup that you would invest in. And so this has opened up a whole new option for people that want to put in $100, $1,000, $5,000 and have equity in these startups. So it's an amazing opportunity since that's come about.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite platforms, and I don't get paid from them, is WeFunder. And another piece of advice, Catherine and I, the moment we met, we had this just instant connection because we were very mission-driven women, and we want to see these women-funded businesses get funded, because we know that less than 2% of women-led pitches to VCs actually get funded. So that's stupid. Anyway, what I would suggest people do, and I think it's really healthy as an exercise, is think of the platforms like WeFunder like going to the gym. Initially, you might not know what you're doing. The workout might be hard. You might not feel that fit. Go in, and if you're physically able, set aside $50, 100, 150, 250, and learn how to look at a startup's pitch, look at their pitch deck, do your research. And that is going to be a great training ground, because as you get consciously competent in doing that, then it trains you up for when you do invest 25,000 or 50 or 100,000 or whatever the case is. And Catherine, I love WeFunder. Sometimes I'll just go and I'll read a company. I might invest like $250 versus the other ones that I invest a lot more money in. But it's I think that the best way to learn something is to physically do it.
I agree with you 100%. And I tell people it's like the new book club. Instead of going to a club of women that you're reading a book, you go to a club of women and you get to hear the most incredible ideas and inventions that are coming to fruition. And what could really be more exciting than that? So I agree with you. To do it is to learn it. There's also all these entities popping up now that actually have programs to educate women on how to become angel investors. So I'm very excited about that too. That's something people can Google and look into. So if they truly want to learn how to be an angel investor, I think the thing that holds people back is the not knowing what to do or what it entails, and they don't want to do something that they don't know. That's the fear factor. But walk through that fear, go learn it. Like you said, knowledge is power, you know?
And even what can we do to support women-led businesses, right? So the new CEO of Walgreens is a woman. I tweeted about her. When you see a woman who is crushing it and leading a company, comment on her post, share her material, share her article she posts on LinkedIn or whatever platform you're on. We're seeing what excites me to a lot of younger female founders. I had Emily Hochman on my show. She founded Wellery. So they did a $2 million raise, and they're doing amazing things with women and body image and technology and all this really cool stuff. And Emily just made Forbes top 30 under 30. Then I interviewed this female founder who was 11 years old or 12. And her name is Shaddai. And she started a cosmetics company on Instagram, and 12 years old. And so I get so excited to see all of these amazing young women. And then I want to give a couple of stats, Catherine, that I gave, on Mindy and Glenn's show. So for startup success in Silicon Valley, the average age is 47 years old. And a founder who's 60 is 3 times as likely to be successful as a founder who's 30. And right now
God, I love these stats.
Aren't they great? I'm mentoring these couple of gals. This is just a cool story. They're both nurses in the hospice space, and they came to me to do some consulting, and I took their idea and I showed them how with technology it could be a bigger idea, and more than likely they're going to crowdfund, but they're both 60. Wow. And I'm like, girls, you are going to crush this. They've got the wisdom, they've got the experience, they've got the grit. I mean, so I love that we have this broad spectrum of, from 12 years old right up to women in their 60s who are just starting businesses. Such a great time.
I love that. The women that won our Pitch Fest, our last one, that the She Angel series is about, are a little bit on the older side. They're not, super young. And I love that. I'm like, yeah, you can do this at any age. Do not let that get in your way. In fact, you probably have more wherewithal, more experience that you bring to the table than somebody 20 or 25 or 30. So it's a plus. Yeah. Well, I love that. Everything you've said is such an inspiration. People should look you up. You have 14 books. I know you
7, not 14.
What? Oh, how many books?
7
books. Oh, only 7.
Our company Radius is now on a second M&A list. And, Catherine, you of all people know, with the due diligence and, whatever the case is. And I was really meditating coming in out of 2020, is this my year to write book number 8? And it's not, but some interesting things have been happening with some of my author friends. Harvey McKay, 87 years old, just wrote a brand new book called Getting a Job is a Job. And I'm on the cover with Lou Holtz, who I love Lou Holtz.
Getting a job is a job. Everybody's got to remember that.
Yeah. So
you have a podcast I want to mention. Let's not forget that, the Susan Sly Project, which I'm looking forward to being on. And,
yes.
As a fellow podcaster, we know it's such a fun platform to share our information so that, women out there can get inspired and get resources so that they can, soar with their own business. That's what it's all about. How do we help each other?
Exactly. And I know that you and I have spoken. If someone wants to check out my show, it's founders. And that's why I said, whether it's a 12-year-old cosmetics founder or a top Forbes 30 under 30. And I went through this evolution of like, who is the show for? What do I want to do? And so finally, I feel like, now I've got it where I want it. But I used to do radio back in the 90s and television. I was on television 5 days a week. So you would think it would have, been faster than 30 years to get me to this point. But no, sometimes, it takes a while. But Catherine and I are really, really passionate about the concept of building a women-led fund, a large VC fund that is funded by women and for women-led startups. And I love that. So many people, Serena Williams, Melinda Gates, so many people are helming funds like this. And we're going to start to see more funds where it's a group of women coming together, building out that fund and, from an investment piece. So I'm just planting the seed now so that when people hear us talking about it on Clubhouse or they hear us talking about it on our shows, they know what that's about. Because at some point we're going to be pitching all of you to say, hey, do you want to invest in this and really make some great change in the world for female leaders? So
I love that. I'm so glad you planted that seed. And I just appreciate all that you're doing. I often mention that in my TED Talk, which is Fund Women Save the World, that the reason that we don't get the funding that we should is that there's not enough female investors at the panel. And the reason that that is so important is people tend to invest in people they identify with. Unfortunately, that's the case, but it is the case. And so how are we ever going to level this playing field? It's got to be that we have more women in the investment world making decisions. And so that's why you and I are such big proponents of more women getting involved in angel investing. So I'm so glad that you're doing that fund.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we're planting the seed now, but, feel free to reach out to Catherine or myself if it's something you're interested in. We're still having discussions with the FBS, and you're all invited to be FBS members. It stands for Fem Boss Squad. It was just an idea I had in the middle of the night, maybe with some wine. I'll confess.
Yep, they can find that on Clubhouse Sundays at 4 Pacific time, and they can find you at your website. Why don't you give us that?
Yeah, susansly.com. And we're going through a website iteration. So just, susansly.com, or you can follow me on Instagram at Susan Sly, on LinkedIn at Susan Sly, on follow Catherine and I on Clubhouse. That's our new place we hang out. Twitter at Susan_Sly, all the social media. And if you want to check out my show, it's really around the mindset and the skills for people who are thinking about starting a business or have a business that maybe they've stalled a bit. They're looking for inspiration, but it really is a multi-generational show. So, and I keep everything G-rated. I don't, who was it? Dave Asprey was on my show. I said, you can't swear. So kids listen to my show. So
please follow Susan Sly wherever you can. You can see she's a wealth of information and inspiration. Of course, visit us at sheangelinvestors.com. We give away a free download of 6 ways to fund your business, because there are more than one way. And of course, follow us also on social media, She Angel Investors. Susan, thank you so much. I'm just so grateful that you've come into my sphere, and I'm so grateful that you are here today sharing your wisdom and your generosity with everybody. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. Remember to invest in her. Make it a great week. Thanks, Susan.
Thanks, Catherine.
Our theme music was created and produced by Lindsay Tomasic.